guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to bring you guys a case, an unsolved case actually, about the story of Kelly Cook. So you probably have not heard of this case, and I'm really trying to get this case to new eyes because this case happened back in 1981 and it hardly left where it happened at all. It hasn't reached nationwide or global attention at all, and for being such a scary and I feel like very common story, it's really important to get cases like this out there. And as I said, it happened in 1981, so it's getting colder and colder by the day. So please keep your eyes and ears open and maybe ask parents, if you have parents that were around that time, about what they know about this case and if they can help at all, because there's sure a lot of evidence and I feel like it could probably be solved one day. So let's get into the case of Kelly Cook. On April 18th, 1981, a girl whose name has never been properly released to the public, but for the sake of this case, I'll refer to her as Lauren, got a call around late at night. She was the local babysitter in the standard Alberta, Canada area, and commonly received calls like this late at night from parents asking for teenagers such as her to come over and take care of their kids for a few hours. Alberta was a very large county, but where they lived in standard, very small village of only about 353 people in 2016, but in the 80s I'm guessing it was either the same or slightly less. But anyways, this man called Lauren that night. He stated his name was Bill Christensen, and he asked Lauren, hey, can you come over and babysit my kids from 8 p.m. till midnight? Now, of course, it sounds like any other offer, but Lauren had to decline that day because she was busy studying for exam and just was busy in general doing other schoolwork. She felt bad for letting the man down, however, as she probably assumed, hey, look, he really needs a babysitter, so she gave her friend's number, her ice figure skating friend, Kelly Cook. Kelly Cook was 15 years old in 1981. She was a very responsible, wise, and trustworthy girl that was pretty popular at school too. She simply adored figure skating. Just like I said, she was on the team with her friend, and just like many local teen girls in the town, she had a part-time job of babysitting. And I find it really cute that her mom refers to her as, when she was 3 years old, she was going on 90, and Kelly even had dreams of becoming a lawyer when she was older. So you can tell she's a very determined and satisfied person, and I can totally see myself becoming friends with somebody like her, as she just seems like a really simple old soul that is just really admirable about her.
She was very good at school, and she had plans for the future. She always was like that. Even when she was tiny, she was 3 going on 90 always. She was very smart.
So a few days after the initial call Lauren received on April 18th, a few days later on April 22nd, 1981, at 8:30 a.m., Kelly ran to pick up the phone. On the other line was a man named Bill Christensen. He stated that later that night at 8:30 p.m., he needed a babysitter from 8:30 p.m. to midnight. So Kelly didn't know the man, her mom didn't know the man, neither did any of her other family members, but things like this were common. Sure, she went over to a friend's house to babysit, but hey, this is obviously somebody in town. Christensen is a local name in the town. So Kelly went and asked her mom, hey, can I go? And he said he will pick me up and I can go and babysit. So her mom was a bit apprehensive at first and wanted to make sure that when Kelly went to school that she would ask around if anyone knew the name. So Kelly went to school, she asked around. Sure, kids heard of the name before. They heard, oh yeah, Christensen, yeah, sounds familiar, but nobody confirmed, yes, I know who Bill Christensen is. But Kelly said, hey, they know the last name. So she told her mom this. Her mom was like, all right, you can go. So Kelly said that the man would be around later to go pick her up later that night. Whenever Kelly babysat, there was always a rule, no matter whose house she was at. Always within, when she arrived safely to the house, she had to use the home phone to call back to her home and make sure to tell her parents that she arrived safe. So keep this in mind, as this is a pretty, typical thing she would do. She was a very responsible young girl, so this shouldn't be difficult for her to complete such an easy task like this at all. Just like he said he would, Bill Christensen pulled up to the Cook house at 8:30 p.m. The man inside the car never came out, but he pulled up in a cream-colored, full-size North American car. Kelly got into the passenger seat, waved goodbye to her parents, her mom, who was standing in the front door frameway, and her siblings, who were watching also from the front stairs, and her dad, who was in the house. They're all watching, waving bye to Kelly, see you in a few hours. She waved and left. So after Kelly left at 8:30 p.m., around an hour later, her mom, Marion, was expecting a call, and an hour was at the latest. It should not have taken that long for them to leave at 8:30, and they should have gotten to his house around 15-20 minutes later. So her mother was definitely getting extensively worried. So she didn't want to freak out right away and start calling the police without any real given reason. But so instead, she started calling around the area, friends, acquaintances, local businesses, just random people around the town. Again, it was very small, only 353 people that would know. She started asking, do you know who Bill Christensen is? Do you know who Bill Christensen is? Everyone said, no, we don't have a confirmed answer. I don't really know who that is. So she really started getting worried now. Who did I just let my daughter go with? I don't even know this guy's real name. Who is Bill Christensen? Said he was around here. He's clearly not. So, fearing for the worst, she called the RCMP, which is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and immediately they began a search because this behavior was not like Kelly at all. And this is a teenager that got into a grown man's car. This doesn't even look good. This cannot be considered a runaway. So immediately a search began. 350 police officers started scouring the area. They went up to every single house in the village, asking questions. Did you see this? Did you see Kelly? Do you know of the car? They started looking in abandoned buildings, farms, fields, etc. And unfortunately, nothing was found. Now the police knew that there was really an issue on their hands, and Kelly Cook was certainly missing from the community. Since nothing physical was coming up, police knew that they had to start investigating what they had, which was a name, Bill Christensen. So as you've probably already guessed, this name is clearly false. It's a fake name. The police did extensive investigating into this, and they couldn't find anything that led them to a real person in the community or relatively anywhere. And if there was a Bill Christensen, obviously they were questioned and they either had an alibi or something to back them up that this was not them. So even if it's not a real name, the killer or abductor would never use their real name. So police had to go on, what do we have next? Oh, we have a call that somebody called Kelly from somewhere. We need to find out where that call happened. So when you look into this case, there's two conflicting reports of how the police found the source of the call. So the source of the call was at a gas station / this hotel bar in Standard. But either way, they either traced the call back, or somebody from the gas station / hotel bar called in and said, hey, this guy came around the time and I heard him talking on the phone about babysitting. So either one of those two options, but either way, police couldn't really do too much with this, but they did have a physical description now of their suspect, which is pretty helpful. So the service manager that worked at the gas station / hotel bar said something pretty peculiar, which I thought was a pretty good physical observation. He said, quote, "To me, he looked like a farmer. I don't remember him wearing a hat, but he was rude. The suspect is around 5 feet and 10 inches, heavy build and barrel-chested, around 180 pounds. He looks to be 30 to 40 years old with a rugged appearance, heavily creased on the face, weather-beaten, and in general tan face and hands. He was said to not be attractive looking. He had a round face with short, dark brown hair, not black, that covered his ears, a large nose bridge, and he was clean-shaven with no sideburns. He was wearing blue trousers, a blue windbreaker jacket with company's crest / badges on it. Authorities also discovered that around 10/10:30 p.m., an operator picked up a call from Hussar, Canada. And on the other line is something completely just sends chills down my spine. Only for a brief few seconds, a girl's scream was heard on the other side of the line, and police believe that this was Kelly's scream. So already she was about 20-25 minutes away in Hussar, Canada at 10/10:30. So this sort of sets up a timeline, sort of gives us an idea of where Kelly's now going to, but in general, it doesn't really help too much with the entire case. So April went into May, and May went into June with no leads, no suspects, no evidence, no anything. And things were beginning to look pretty dim, because how can you sit here and wait for your child to come home and you don't even know what's going on? Like, the police, nothing's coming forward, nothing's happening. And it's just, in general, it's overall so depressing. So for an entire 2 months, nothing happened until the fateful day in June. 2 months later, on June 28th, 1981, a young man was riding his motorcycle around Chin Lake Reservoir about 2.5 hours away. So this reservoir is not the most well-known body of water in the area, so that's why he was just kind of riding around on his motorcycle, having fun, until he saw something that definitely caught his eye. So that day, the water levels in the reservoir were down a lot because of a drought in the area. So because of this, he saw something that completely changed just his entire life and just perspective on everything. In the middle of the reservoir was Kelly's body. She was bound, and there were a rope tied around her hips, shoulders, and ankles, and she was held down by 2 massive cinder blocks. Her body was so badly decomposed that they could hardly even tell it was her, but they can tell that she was fully clothed. There were no signs of sexual assault, and she had to be identified by her dental records. There is no confirmed cause of death. Some sources say asphyxiation, but there's no way to truly tell what it was. But just, I can't even imagine receiving this news. I can't imagine this is how you find your daughter dead in the middle of a reservoir, just completely in that stage. It's horrifying. So as you could tell, there was closure for the family in a way, but her killer is still out there. And now with the body, what are you going to do next? You have to find your killer. After completely draining the lake and looking for more evidence, nothing was found. So this completely run cold. So something interesting that I thought really had to bring up was that 11 other girls, including Lauren, had received calls from a man asking to babysit all throughout Standard area and probably some areas around it. But this shows you that this crime was premeditated. This man was looking for a girl, specifically a babysitter, to go and do this for, to ensure in a trap. And another thing was, you're probably thinking, when I do research on the case, they don't really cover this, but it's a pretty simple answer. It hasn't been confirmed, but the killer got Lauren, the first initial girl, her number either through White Pages or the Yellow Book, or from her face and her picture, her name too, was in the local newspaper for an ice skating accomplishment. So it is believed that the killer either looked up her name in white books, or he called the school asking for her contact information and got it that way. So you can tell it's probably relatively easy to do, especially in the 80s. I bet even easier to do now with the internet. So that just shows you where this all came from. When thinking about this case, of course, there's a lot of questions. Of course, it's like, why hasn't anything developed? Why hasn't any arrest been made? Why hasn't anyone been arrested on suspicion? And just a more specific questions, as in, was this man a local to Standard? Because clearly he knew where to go on the streets to go pick up Kelly, to go call the school, etc. He knew where to drive around. He knew the neighborhood somewhat, right? So how is it that nobody recognized his car, you know? How is it that this car, pretty specific cream colored car, was driving around? Nobody saw it at all. It was only around 8:30 at night. Like, nobody saw anything at all. So I just find that pretty odd. And maybe some sort of license plates could be wrong. Like, maybe her parents standing in the door, did they not pick up on the license plate or any other very specific features of it? So I just find it completely weird. And I was watching a few interviews, and it said that the police are waiting now on a deathbed confession, and that's the best they can get out of finding the killer for this case. And that just makes me so mad, because how are we going to sit here? We could never ever receive that. The man could already be dead. He's either in his 60s or to late 80s, and he could have already died, or we're never going to see a deathbed confession. If this killer has kept the secret for this long, how are you going to guarantee that he's just going to be sitting on his bed dying and tell you this story? It's completely disrespectful to Kelly, and it makes me really mad. So this case is unsolved, and with this amount of evidence that I feel like could definitely lead to some things, I feel like if this took place now instead of the 80s, we could get a lot more done. But unfortunately, it didn't. It should not have happened at all. And Kelly's case has been unsolved, and her family still wants this to be out there because cold cases are so important. I know people get mad, oh, we don't know who the killer is, we don't know what the motive, we don't know anything. Or trigger something you saw back then, or your parents or your grandparents, just something important. Like, hey, if I was in Alberta, Canada in that time period, can I really think back and try and think like that, you know? So pretty important thought, pretty scary case to say the least. So I've just seen some people be critical about her parents. Why did you let her go with this random man? And I'm not trying to defend the parents, but it was a very small town. Everybody trusted everybody, only 353 people. So it's something that we should, obviously, take caution to now, but it is still, we shouldn't blame the parents. That is just pretty horrible thing you can do. But thank you for watching today's video. I know that was a pretty heated case, and it's very crazy and interesting, and I really would just love to talk about it for hours. So definitely comment what you think, and maybe do some research about who you think did it, or just in general, your theories and opinions. I always love to read them. So thank you guys so much for watching this video today, and I'll see you next time. Bye!